Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty significant. The new Republic Act 12,009. That's the updated Procurement Act.
Hmm.
And, getting your head around new laws can feel, well, overwhelming sometimes.
Definitely. Lots of jargon, lots of detail.
Exactly. So we're here to cut through that. We want to give you the clearest picture of the key changes and what they actually mean, especially if you deal with government procurement at all.
Right. Think of this as your quick guide. We've gone through the official documents, the outlines of RA 12009, looking at the main features.
Saving us all the trouble.
Hopefully. So our mission today is basically to pull out the crucial stuff, highlight what's really relevant, and make it interesting. Whether you're just curious or you're actually involved in the process.
Okay, sounds good. So where should we start? Maybe with the Bids and Awards Committee, the BAC. How are things changing for them?
Yeah, good place to start. One of the big things is definitely streamlining. The process is much more defined now.
Defined how? Like steps?
Exactly. Defined stages and, crucially, deadlines for each stage.
Ah, deadlines. That's new.
It is. And what's really notable is the accountability piece tied to it. If there's a delay, they now have to formally justify it, report on it. It's not just, oh, things got held up.
Right. There are consequences.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Sanctions are mentioned for noncompliance. So it definitely puts more pressure on the BAC to manage the process tightly, keep things moving efficiently.
Okay, so tighter timelines, more accountability, and I heard something about everything moving online.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge one. Mandatory use of a central e-government procurement portal.
For everything. All transactions.
That's the mandate.
Yeah.
A single portal for, well, pretty much the whole procurement life cycle. It's a massive shift away from paper.
Wow. That promises efficiency, I guess, but
Yeah.
sounds like a challenge, too, getting everyone up to speed.
Absolutely. That's a real practical hurdle. Think about it. Every BAC member across the country needs to be comfortable with these digital tools.
So how are they addressing that?
Well, the Act requires mandatory training for BAC members. Specific training on using the platform for bidding, evaluation, awards, the whole digital workflow.
Makes sense. It has to happen.
It's necessary, definitely. But, the effectiveness really hinges on how good that training is and how accessible they make it.
Right. And it feels like this ties into another point I saw, professionalizing the BAC itself.
Exactly. It's not just about digital tools. There's a new requirement for BAC members to be formally trained and actually certified in procurement.
Certified, like proper qualifications.
Yes. So you can't just be assigned. You need recognized procurement expertise.
That's a big step.
Yeah.
Could that create issues like finding enough certified people initially?
That's a potential bottleneck for sure.
Uh,
Setting up a robust, standardized certification program takes time and resources. We might see a scramble initially, but the long-term goal is clearly about boosting the expertise, the credibility of the people handling billions in public funds.
And ethics too, right? I saw a mention of a code of conduct.
Yes. Alongside the certification, there's a strong emphasis on adhering to a specific code of conduct and ethics, with clear accountability if they don't. Building trust is a key theme.
Okay, now this next one really caught my eye. Green procurement. Sustainability factors. That seems new for government bids here.
It's definitely a significant addition. The BAC now has to consider environmental factors.
Like what specifically?
Things like whether materials are recyclable, energy efficiency of equipment, the environmental footprint of the goods or services.
So it's not just about the cheapest price anymore?
Not solely, no. This ties into the idea of best value. Price is still a factor, of course, but environmental impact is now part of that value equation.
Interesting. How does that work in practice? Does a greener option win even if it costs a bit more?
It can. The Act introduces the concept of life cycle costing, so they can look at the total cost over the products or services' entire life.
Ah, so a slightly higher purchase price might be offset by lower running costs or disposal costs down the line.
Precisely. Or lower environmental impact costs. It allows for a more holistic assessment. Moving beyond just that initial sticker price, it requires a different way of thinking about value.
Definitely a more long-term view. Okay, and to make sure all this is happening openly, transparency. Any changes there for the BAC?
Big changes. Enhanced transparency and monitoring are key features.
How so?
There's a requirement for real-time posting of procurement information notices, awards, contracts, all on that central portal we mentioned.
Real time, so the public can see what's happening as it happens.
That's the goal. Much greater visibility. And again, there are teeth to it. Failing to comply with these transparency rules can lead to audit issues, even penalties. It's all about openness.
Okay, that covers the BAC perspective quite well. Now, you mentioned some features that sort of cut across, affecting both the BAC and the bidders. What are those?
Right. Some interesting points here. First off, there's a 3-year transition period for the whole act.
3 years. Why so long?
Well, it acknowledges that these are big changes. Agencies need time to upgrade their systems, get the e-portal fully functional, train everyone, and bidders need time to adapt too, figure out the new digital processes, understand the new evaluation criteria like sustainability.
So it's a buffer period, but is there a risk people just wait until the last minute?
That's always a possibility, yes. Some might delay adapting, which could cause problems later. But smart organizations, both government and private, will probably use this time strategically to get ready.
Okay. What else? I saw something about innovation partnerships.
Yes, that's quite forward-looking. The Act now legally allows for public-private co-development projects.
So government agencies and private companies developing solutions together.
Exactly. Leveraging private sector innovation for public needs. It opens up interesting possibilities.
But potentially tricky to manage, like who owns the final product? How is risk shared?
Absolutely. Those are the key challenges. They'll need really clear guidelines on intellectual property, risk sharing, decision-making, and of course, maintaining transparency to avoid any conflicts of interest. But the potential is there.
Interesting. Okay, what's next on that list?
Performance-based contracting. There's a definite push towards contracts tied more closely to outcomes or results.
So instead of paying just for completing tasks, payment is linked to achieving certain service levels or goals.
That's the idea. Less focus on inputs, more on measurable results.
That requires a different mindset, doesn't it, for both sides?
It does. Government agencies need to get really good at defining the outcomes they want and measuring performance effectively. And contractors need to focus squarely on delivering those tangible results and being accountable for them. It could lead to better services, but it needs careful contract design.
Right. And you mentioned life cycle costing earlier in the context of green procurement, but it's a broader point too.
Yes, it's listed as a key feature generally. TCO total cost of ownership can now formally override the lowest initial price in evaluations.
So it reinforces that shift away from just pure cost cutting.
Absolutely. It's about looking at the bigger picture. Maintenance, efficiency, longevity, environmental impact, the whole value proposition over time.
Okay. And one more cross-cutting feature mentioned was advanced procurement. What's that about?
This allows agencies to basically get a head start on procurement even before their budget is officially released.
How does that work?
They can do the preparatory work, defining what they need, maybe even identifying potential bidders while waiting for the final budget approval.
So once the money is confirmed, they can move much faster.
Potentially, yes. It could significantly cut down delays on projects starting, but, it needs careful planning. There's a risk of wasted effort if the budget doesn't come through as expected.
Okay, that gives us a good sense of the BAC changes and these broader features. Let's switch gears completely now. What about the bidders? The contractors, the suppliers, what does RA12009 mean for them?
Right. This is crucial for businesses wanting to work with the government.
Yeah.
And there's some potentially good news here.
Oh, like what?
Well, there's a push towards simplified eligibility requirements.
Less paperwork.
That's the goal. Reducing the number of documents needed, especially for, say, repeat suppliers who already have a track record, or for MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises.
Making it easier for smaller businesses.
Yes, and encouraging everyone to use their PhilGPS registration, that's the existing electronic procurement system, and potentially move towards a single digital credential should also help streamline things for bidders. Less red tape, hopefully.
That would be welcome, I'm sure. And tying into the digital shift, online bidding is now the standard, right?
Right. It's not optional anymore. Bidders must register on that official e-procurement portal we talked about.
And submit everything online. Bids, documents.
Yes. Submission, the public opening of bids, even evaluation, it's all meant to happen digitally. And the law now explicitly recognizes e-signatures, which is important for making that work smoothly.
So businesses really need to get comfortable with that platform.
Absolutely essential. No more dropping off physical bid envelopes for the most part.
Okay. Now, this next point feels huge for bidders. The evaluation criteria changing from lowest price to best value. We touched on it with green procurement, but it's broader, isn't it?
It's probably the most fundamental shift for bidders, yes. Lowest price is no longer guaranteed to win.
So what does win? What makes up this best value?
It's a combination of factors. Price is still one,
Yeah.
but now they'll weigh things like technical capability much more heavily,
Okay.
sustainability, like we discussed, delivery time, and reliability, and even innovation. Does the bid offer a new or better way of doing things?
So bidders need to sell themselves on more than just cost.
Definitely. They need a much more well-rounded proposal. They have to articulate their technical strengths, their environmental considerations, their reliability, any innovative edge they have. Their track record might matter more. It's about demonstrating overall value, not just being the cheapest.
That really changes the game for how companies prepare their bids. But alongside these new opportunities, are there tougher rules too?
Yes, the flip side is stricter penalties for misconduct.
Such as?
Things like misrepresenting information in your bid, colluding with other bidders, which is illegal, obviously, or failing to deliver on the contract if you win.
What are the consequences?
They can be quite severe.
Yeah.
Blacklisting from future government work, forfeiture of your bid security deposit, and even potential criminal and civil lawsuits depending on the offense.
So play fair and deliver what you promise.
Essentially, yes. The act is clearly trying to enforce higher standards of ethics and performance.
Okay. And finally, you mentioned MSMEs earlier. Is there specific support for smaller businesses wanting to participate?
Yes, there is a focus on inclusive participation. The act allows for measures like preferential treatment for MSMEs and cooperatives.
How might that work? Like setting aside certain contracts just for them?
That's one possibility, reserving specific lots or procurement opportunities. We might also see more technical assistance programs rolled out.
Help them navigate the system, prepare bids.
See, exactly. Training and support to help smaller businesses compete effectively in this new landscape. It's about broadening economic participation.
Okay. So if we were to sum all this up, RA12009 feels like a really comprehensive overhaul.
It really is. You see these major themes running through it. Streamlining processes, definitely a big push towards digitalization. A focus on professionalizing the people involved, raising ethical standards.
Right, the certification and code of conduct.
And that fundamental shift towards value-based procurement, thinking about sustainability, innovation, life cycle costs, not just the initial price.
And underpinning it all, increased transparency.
Exactly, making the whole system more open and accountable.
So hopefully this deep dive has given everyone a clearer picture of these key changes and, what they might mean on the ground.
That's the aim. Whether you're working within a government agency trying to adapt or your business looking to navigate this new procurement environment, understanding these shifts is pretty crucial.
Absolutely. Which brings us to our final thought for you, our listener. Thinking about all these changes, the digitalization, the focus on best value, sustainability, innovation, what new strategies do you think government agencies and potential bidders will need to develop? How do they adapt effectively to seize the opportunities and tackle the challenges in this new landscape?
Yeah, what does success look like now? It's definitely something to ponder.
Indeed. Lots to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.